We are in the third or the Vibhuti Pada of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. If in the entire Patanjali Yoga Sutra, if one has to point at the most critical part of the Grantha, it is that which we are studying now. It is one of the most difficult part to understand. It requires enormous amount of projective capacity of the intellect to precisely know what Patanjali Maharaj is saying about the mind and the world. As of now, we all are convinced that me, that means my mind, and all these things which I see in this world are different. If I make a statement that me and mango and the cobra are one, we will never ever have the experience of it. We will not believe in it. If you are not a student of Adhyatma, you will be considered as a foolhardy person. How can a cobra, a mango, and you are one? Maybe if you are a student of Adhyatma, you may say that, yes, essentially everything is same. Everything is just Chaitanya. All right. These are all dialogues to be recited. We have no experience. Inside, we are convinced that a cobra is a cobra, a mango is a fruit. I am Dr. Jadhav. When this bhed or division is entrenched in the mind, Patanjali Maharaj is trying to say exactly opposite of that. Understand in the Bhagavad Gita itself, when Bhagavan starts his Upadesh, he starts with Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya is a preeminent Shastra. And that is why it is the only Shastra amongst the Darshanas which directly attacks the basic misconception about ourselves and the world. And the time to understand how the world and me are nothing else but one has come now. Sarvatram ekatvam anupashyati. All right, this is written in Upanishad. But how? How can a cobra and me are same? How can mango and me be same? Because I ate it. That which I ate and the one who is eating, how they can be one? And we have this question in our mind, although we have been last umpteen number of years, because Gurudeva mentioned it, because the saintly people mentioned it, we also nod our head saying that all are one, there is no difference, Advaitam, no Bhedam, all right. But has it really occurred upon in our intellect? Have we really understood it? Now the time has come. So let us see what Patanjali Maharaj has to say about it. And not only Patanjali Maharaj is just saying theoretically, again, Sankhya is the only practical science. A question or a couple of times the questions were raised that what is practical? We've been just studying Samadhi and every sutra has practical implication. That is why this current pada is called Vibhuti Pada. Why Vibhuti Pada? Colloquially, it is called as Siddhi. Mind well, this is not Siddhi, this is Vibhuti. In Bhagavad Gita also, we have a Vibhuti Adhyaya. It is not Siddhi Adhyaya. Vibhuti is visiting the new levels as we move up in the levels of consciousness being extricated from the matter. Currently, Prakriti and Purusha are so well amalgamated with each other that I am able to see Prakriti only from my restricted, local, point-oriented knowledge. This is called egoistic vision. When I see a cobra, I am seeing a cobra from the point of view of my ego, so I look at it as cobra, and the bhed is produced. Now the question comes, how the knowing of Prakriti is related to knowing of mind and how they are related to each other. That is the subject of discussion of first 13 or so sutras of Vibhuti-pada. Rest everything is then what is the effect of knowing it. Some 55 siddhis or vibhutis are described by Patanjali Maharaj in the rest of the pada. Those are not difficult to understand provided we understand the first 13 sutras properly. First thing first, Patanjali Maharaj said that when you undergo dharana, dhyana and samadhi, what is dharana, dhyana, samadhi? Only when you have succeeded in removing your attention from these outwardly indriya oriented activities, and now you and your mind, these are the only two people left in the room, then you use your mind to concentrate upon something. That something is called a dheya or the object, which could be anything. Once you start focusing your mind on the object, what are the transformations that take place in the mind is described in the first few sutras of Vibhuti-pada. Patanjali Maharaj says the first thing that happens when you are alone with your mind. See, you cannot be with the world and the mind together. That is a no in Yoga Sutra. You have to remove the world, take the mind and focus it on the object. The purpose of this focusing being to study the mind and to quieten the mind. So when I try to do that, first of all, I should be able to concentrate upon an object. So if I take an object in front of me for meditation, I observe that my mind immediately jumps from the object of meditation to another subject or object or thought. So there is a constant movement of the mind, the attention, which is nothing else but the vritti of the, or the thought of the chitta. It goes straight on the object, it goes horizontally outside on another thing, comes back, again goes on the object, again it goes on. And where all it goes, it is everybody's experience. When we sit for meditation, it goes to enormous, innumerable things. Sitting here, you may think about the mission to the Mars. It will go towards a revolution of France. It will go towards maybe a object of liking, some food object, some past birth. When I was small, my friend, my office, America's diplomacy, Russia doing something strange, Indian army, my brother in Air Force. The mind keeps on going in different directions. How much time does the mind take to reach there? An absolute fraction of a second. So there is a constant zigzag movement of the mind. And then what happens? In that myriad, complex attention diffraction, the multiplicity of attentions, there is a thought that is coming saying that, oh, hey, you're sitting for meditation, pull them back. Is this not the story of our meditation? It is. Now what happens? Swamiji, the Patanjali Maharaj first deals with this particular aspect. He says, whenever you focus or concentrate on an object for the meditation, the mind will try to go outside, then again come on that object which you want to contemplate. And you can very well see that you only pull that mind and put it in the object. That means the mind is not doing it on its own. You are asking the mind not to go outside, but to come on the object, which clearly means that between the mind and you, there is a gap. Now the question is, if mind is under you, then why is it that once I tell him go on the object, it keeps going outside? And let us use some technical terminology here. Going outside is vyuthana, and bringing it back on the object is nirodha. Why is it that if the mind is following what I say, please come inside, please get focused on the Murti of Rama, if I say that, then why the mind is not listening once told? That is because the mind has habituated itself in going out and spreading its wings over multiple things, like a honey bee going from one flower to the other flower. At a very rapid pace, it keeps on moving from one point to another point. When did this happen? It happened in many births earlier. So what has happened is, you have your own child. Unfortunately, the child was not attended since childhood. So it is a very jittery child, who is not sitting inside the home, constantly going outside in the bylanes to play. That's how the mind is. In a Nirodha Parinama, you need to bring that mind into the house. You need to bring that particular thought from outside to the house, means to the object of meditation. The child will come to the house only when it will find something interesting in the house. Otherwise, for him, the interesting thing is in the bylanes outside. So he's running outside. Similarly, the mind is running outside. The vrittis are going outside because outside thing has given a taste of pleasure, which the focus or the meditative attention has not given. So even if you force the child to sit in the home, he remembers all the things he was playing with his friend. It was such a nice thing to play the cricket outside. This my father brought forcefully to me to this place. So even in sitting in home, he will keep thinking of the bylanes. Similarly, sitting in meditation, we keep thinking of the outside things. Then what does the father do? He forces the mind of the child to sit inside the home for the study, and slowly, because of the compulsion of the examination coming, he starts studying and he understands the topic in the book also. Now that he is sitting inside the home while studying also, intermittently the mind goes outside. So how does that happen? He's studying the book of history, and in the history book, he's studying that Rana Pratap did this thing in the Battle of Gogunda, this happened, and in that, there was a exhibition of valor and fighting spirit by Rana Pratap. And suddenly he says, yes, when I fought with my friend, I also showed up. What happened? He took the parallel from the object that he was reading and communicated outside again. In the first stage, he was not studying at all. Study, no, outside to go to play. Study, going outside to play. When this happens, you are in the stage of dharana. Dharana is a constant battle between going outside and coming inside the house, focusing on an object and always going towards other objects. Vyuthana Nirodha Sangharsha. While studying subsequently, when I got interested into the topic that I was studying very well, but suddenly the fight that I was reading about, which is my part of my knowledge, suddenly I got a parallel and went out. That means one aspect of the subject that I was studying, that aspect took me away for the comparative analysis. analogy. Similarly, when we are meditating on a particular object, the object's beauty, Rama's beauty of his lotus eyes, while studying that, I remember that that particular Rama Murti which I saw in Tanjore had a much better and beautiful eyes than the one which I saw somewhere in Madhya Pradesh. Now what happened? Again the mind went out, but where did it go? Not to another subject, but to same subject for similar experiences. The mind has content of Rama, but within the content, it has multiple places to move. So how will we describe this? Dharana is bringing the bull from the field and pulling it and tying it to the pole. This is dharana. What is a dhyana? Pulling that particular rope close and close to the pole so that there is very little movement is possible. In the first stage, the bull is running around in a given circumference depending upon the length of the rope. Dharana is bringing the bull and tying it to the rope. Dhyana is giving a fixed rope for the bull to move around, not beyond that. And then slowly you reduce the length of the rope so that the bull is directly juxtaposed to the pole. Dhyana becomes samadhi. So nirodha parinama is what happens when the bull is brought to the pole to tie. Samadhi parinama is when you reduce the length of the rope so that the bull is coming closer to the pole. And ekagrata parinama is when the bull is completely tied to the pole. Now that bull and bull are almost juxtaposed to each other, there is no movement left in the bull. So a bull standing absolutely close to the pole is as good as the pole, because pole is not moving, bull is not moving. So that means by character, by dharma, they both almost become one, to the extent that you cannot make out which is the bull and which is the pole. Why? Because both of them are exhibiting same characters. That means bull lost its bullness and became a pole. Similarly, in ekagrata parinam, subject, meditator, and the object of meditation became so close that the object of meditation and the meditator became one. Difficult to say who is the meditator and who is the object. That means samana tulya pratyayoho ekagrata parinama. This is called tulya pratyaya, that is a samadhi. And in ekagrata, swaswarupa shunyeva bhasa. Swaswarupa, there is nothing left in me. I have become the object. So subject first brings the multiplicity of object onto one object, then focuses itself on object so that he grows closer to the object, and then he merges with the object, bringing from all the objects one object is nirodha parinama, which is nothing else but the dharana. Continuously thinking of that object and having relationship with only one object is a dhyana. Taila dharavata samana pratyaya is a dhyana. And then going close to the object and losing the subjectivity and becoming the object, or subject becoming object, object becoming subject. So subjectivity, objectivity is lost. When subjectivity and objectivity is lost, meditation cannot take place, because meditation means distance between the meditator and the object of meditation. When object of meditation and the subject of meditation, they become one, meditation is over, because meditation can only happen when there is a difference, when there is a bhed. The bheda is gone. So meditator, meditation, meditative object, and the act of meditation all become one. That is ekagrata parinama. So these three parinama is what we saw last time. Now comes the question, what if I study all these three different aspects of the mind? How does that help me in understanding the universe? So now we are coming to a concept, first of all, to understand this universe or the creation. What is the purpose of Patanjali in doing this on mind? He says, if you know your chitta or the mind properly and study and properly reach the avastha of ekagrata by practice in your mind, then through same practice, when you look towards the any object in this universe, you will find the true nature of the object. Now comes the question, a yogi looks at the people in this world, the trees in this world, the birds in this world, but his vision is different than ours. ध्यानावस्थित यद गतेन पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्या अंत न विदुः सुराः सुरगणा. Even the gods cannot understand what he sees. Gurudev, like exactly the body frame of ours, was with us. Now, what is the difference between he looking at the world and me looking at the world? That is what we are trying to find out. Patanjali Maharaj says that first try to understand what the world is. What is the world? What is universe? Moment this question is asked to us, our explanation is, oh, world is of all this, me, my wife, my child, my office, this, unending. This is universe. Patanjali Maharaj says that, sorry, this is a wrong definition of universe. When you define universe in this manner, it becomes samsara. He says, no, this is prapancha. This is not samsara. Because you have not understood it correctly, it has become samsara for you. Samsarati iti samsaraha. That is why continuously you are progressing in that birth and death, you are going more. That is not the right thing. What is the right thing? To understand that this universe is nothing else but prapancha. Prapancha means prakarshena panchatattva vikasa. That means whatever variety you may see. But sir, I saw a very big sun there. That is also the same thing. But I saw a very small dragonfly. That is also the same thing. But they look so different, sir. Dragonfly is so small. Sun is so big and luminous. I saw darkness, then mango, then cobra, then stick, then water, then tree, then tiger, then lady, then man, then child. All are different. Patanjali Maharaj refuses to accept it. Why does he refuses to accept it? He says, look, you are not able to see the universe the way it is simply because you are not obeying what is called as cosmic law or the law of universe or Prakriti Niyama. So what is that? Yoga Shastra is nothing else but understanding how cosmic forces operate. Yoga Shastra is nothing else but understanding how Prakriti operates. We are a part of Prakriti. We have to understand how Prakriti operates. To know how Prakriti operates, I can start from outside or I can start from inside, from myself or from outside. I want to know what exactly the mango is. That could be one way of going for it. Or I want to know what my mind is. Both are essentially same. Now, first thing we need to understand is the whole universe is made up of only one thing that is called Prakriti, according to Sankhya Tattvajnana. So what is that? What does that mean? Prakriti is called dharmi. Now, what is dharmi and dharma? This concept should be clear in the mind. Dharmi is one who has the source of all the dharmas. Now, let us put it in simpler words. A clay is there. What can be done out of clay? A pot can be made. A glass, earthen glass can be made. A very big jug can be made and many things can be made. Now what happened here? The clay itself, if you take in the hand, where is the pot? There is no pot in the clay. There is no glass in the clay. There is no jug in the clay. There is nothing in the clay. There is no doll in the clay. But all of them are made from clay. That means doll exhibits one dharma, one property. What is the property? She is this much, and you know, she has got two hands because it is in a doll form. These are dharmas. A pot, it is circular in nature, it is slightly tapering at the end. These are dharmas. But from where these dharmas came into existence? From the clay. So clay is dharmi. What is made are dharmas. Let us take example. A painter is trying to paint on a blank canvas. Now, can you know before he paints what he is going to paint? We will not come to know, because it is in the mind of the painter. That means the future painting is in the mind of the painter, which he simply puts on the canvas with the help of colors. That means a painting of the tiger appeared on the screen of the canvas, which was existing as a tiger in the mind of the painter. He just expressed it in a manner whereby others can perceive it. As far as painter is concerned, he has already seen the tiger in his mind. Mind well. Now just replace the painter with Prakruti. This Prakruti has got three colors in her hand, Sattva, Rajatama. With these three colors, the Prakruti on the blank canvas of Pancha Mahabhuta paints. And what happens? A picture emerges. Now the question is, this picture which emerged, or the pot which is formed from the clay, where was it before? It was not existing. Where will it be afterwards? It will not exist. That means dharma, or the property exhibited by the dharmi, may not last. It will keep on changing. And in fact, Prakruti constantly keeps on changing. Now the question is, if clay has become the pot, and clay itself doesn't have a pot, clay has potness into it. Ability to create the pot is there in the clay, but it has not produced the pot yet. When it produces, the pot comes. When it is destroyed, the pot is not there. So when we take pot in the hand, we say, oh, look at this pot. But is there a pot? It's a clay. If it's a clay, then why don't we call pot a clay? The clay became the pot. The clay there is a parinama. This is called parinama vada of Sankhya. Parinama of clay, you saw pot. What are the other parinamas that can take place? Millions of them. What can you produce out of the clay? Anything that you feel. Now, what happens when the pots are not produced? It remains in the clay form. Precisely this is what happens when the Prakriti decides to dissolve. All the forms are destroyed and the Prakriti again remains. Where does those main animal, trees, water, oceans, mountains, where do they go? They all come back into the dharmi or the Prakriti and remain in the form of what? Seed form they call it, but seed form means potency form. A woman delivered a baby. Where was the baby earlier? Without woman, the baby cannot be delivered. Woman is not the baby. Baby is because of the woman. So the clay has potness into it. glassness into it, dullness into it. This ness is nothing else, the pravrutti or tendency or ability or potentiality. So Prakruti, when it is not creating anything, it stays as clay. At that point of time, it has potencies into it, which is called in Advaita Mula Maya. When it decides to exhibit the potency, it is called Guna Kshobhini Maya in Advaita, or the Prakruti that is about to express. And the first expression, the first potency that is exhibited by the Prakruti is Trigunas. So Prakruti shows its potency, and when it says shows its potency, means it is Prakriti itself transforming into Sattva Rajatam. And what does that do? Prakriti, before producing anything, first produces three characteristics. What are the characteristics? Anything that is produced will either be stationary or moving, or it will be apprehended as stationary and moving. Think about what I am talking. Prakriti creates a shape. It is called Roop. It creates a shape. Now, for the shape, once it is created, the shape has only two avasthas. One, it is stationary or it is moving. So that means the shape that is created is nothing else but the pot, because pot is clay only. So the shape that is created is Prakriti. How many shapes are created? How many rupas are created? Millions and billions. But all this, whatever is created, the rupa, either it will be steady, stationary, or moving. And who will be aware that it is stationary or moving? That is the third potency. So there are three potencies available. One, a shape is formed, a pot is formed, and it is stationary. Okay. This is called Tamo Guna. Creation and absence of movement or inertia is called Tama. All the stone, acharas, all acharas, insentient objects, are nothing else but the tamogunas. Tamoguna pradhana prakriti. That is how we call it. What is the difference in them? They know only one state, steady, one place. They can't move, because moving is rajas. Moving is rajas. So first you see all stationary things like stone, tree, they're not moving. Then a little movement appears into it, rajas. So the amoeba appears and moves, a limited movement, not a full blast movement, because it is unicellular an organism. Now, as it goes further on expanding, who? Prakriti. Then two rupas come together, three rupas come together, from unicellular to multicellular organism. What is happening? Unicellular is getting modified into multicellular, multicellular is getting modified into tissue, tissue is getting modified into organ, organ is getting modified into a body. And with each modification, new traits are coming in that particular modified form. But what is the basic? All the forms have come from Prakriti. So Prakriti is dharmi, and all these modifications are dharmas. Now, stationary, steady, dull, dark, non-moving is Tamoguna. Movement, speed, fire, everything that is vibrating, tad ejati, tad na ejati, rajoguna, tamoguna. So this, when this is happening, rajoguna, tamoguna, both, do they understand themselves? Does the pot understand that it is a pot made up from the clay? No. That means there is a third ability to know that Tama and Raja is existing. So that means there is what is called as observatory capacity, analytical capacity to understand Tamoguna and Rajoguna. This clarity, this understanding ability is Satvaguna. All this, what is being discussed, has bearing upon the sutra that we are studying. Right now, what we are trying to say is, we are trying to see how Prakriti has created the whole universe with its three potentialities of Sattva, Raja, Tamaguna, and the Sattva, Raja, Tamaguna has to be in unequal proportion for this to sustain. Moment they become equal, no one guna is superseding. And when no one guna supersedes, Prakriti cannot show the potentiality of Sattva, Rajatam. Then it becomes guna samyavastha. That means no creation can take place. As a logical corollary, creation means existence or creation of a thing where Sattva, Rajatama is in disproportion to each other. That is called creation. So what these three gunas, what is the implication? The implication is, understand that all the creation is of Sattva, Rajatama. What about me? So far, me means my mind. I am not mind, but I know I'm behaving like that. I'm behaving with me as mind, and thinking me as mind is ego. I am not mind. I'm different. But as far as this Vyavahar is concerned, I know I am so and so. That means I am giving credence to my mind. That mind with which I am working is also made up of the same thing, Sattva, Rajatama. In other words, essentially, everything in the universe, including my mind, is made up of Sattva, Rajatama. They have all come from Prakriti. Up to this point, it is clear. Now comes the question, Prakriti undergoes transformation. At which stage this explosion of multiplicity happens? This is little important to know. The whole part is, Prakriti became first Mahat. Then after Mahat, what happened? After Mahat came Ahankar. After Ahankara, from Ahankar plus Sattva Guna, Karmendriya, Jnanendriya, Ahankar plus Tamoguna, Tanmatra and Panchamahabhuta. This is how the 24 Tattvas of Sankhyas have come. From Prakriti to Mahat to Ahankar to Tanmatra, the first 4 stages are called Tattvantara. Tattvantara means one Tattva changes into another Tattva. But after Panchamahabhuta onwards, there is no Tattvantara, there is only modification, Parinama of the Tattva. This is very critical for us to know. That means Panchamahabhuta is the last stage of Tattvantara. After that, it is only the modification. What is the great significance of this statement by Sankhyas? This all that you see is Panchamahabhuta and Tanmatra. That means a tree, Panchamahabhuta and Tanmatra. All the objects that you see are Panchamahabhuta and Tanmatra. If this is the case, that means my mind and the tree, they are made up of same things. Composition wise, root causative factor wise, they are same. If this is Pancha Mahabhautik, my Deha is Pancha Mahabhautik, my mind is Pancha Mahabhautik. So what does that mean? It means understanding me and understanding this universe is one and the same. If I understand myself in the proper manner, what is this so-called proper manner? A clear, perceptive anubhuti of my mind as to how it is made up of. Once I know this, then when I look towards anything in the universe, I see the same thing. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, we work on our mind so that we come to know that we are not mind. But because I'm constantly behaving in this world as if I am mind, I undertake some exercises of ekagrata called meditation, so that I slowly do away with my wrong and erroneous impressions about myself. And when I slowly start removing the outer coverings of my mind and ultimately my seed of my mind itself, then only I come to know that, oh, I am not what I was thinking. And then when I look outside, I come to know that is not what I was thinking. It is not a bird. It is not a tree. I am not Mr. So-and-so. They, me, are same. Now that I have controlled my mind, I can tell my mind to concentrate so that I can know my own nature. Similarly, I can concentrate on anything on this in this universe and tell them what to do. Why? Because I realize the nature of everything. The one who knows nature of everything can control the nature of the things. That means it can control the nature. Today we don't know how the clouds come and they rain. We say, yeah, sometime in June they come and they rain. I don't know. But we just see, it is all you see, it just happens. We don't know. But a yogi would come to know what precisely happened and how they are coming, so he can manipulate Pancha Mahabhautik forces to go according to their wishes, because they know the operational aspect of the Pancha Mahabhuta. Gurudeva looked at the clouds and said, it will not rain. Carry on with the yajna. Because huge, it was Hanuman Murti Pratisthapana Utsav, I think. And then everybody was worried. Such a big, so many people, puja, prana pratisthapana, food will be served. And suddenly if it rains, the whole thing is gone. It will be washed away. When the concern was relayed to Gurudeva, he came outside on this and just looked at the clouds and said, no, it will not rain. And it did not. Moment the last person ate the food and the function was over, it rained cats and dogs. We call it, oh, miraculous. No, sir, there are no miracles in this world. Why there are no miracles? How this happened is because Gurudeva, being master of the mind, he was master of the nature. Mastering the mind is mastering the nature, because mind and nature have the same composition. This is the basis. So when you do Nirodha, Samadhi, and Ekagrata Parinam, same Parinam you focus on the outside, you come to know the real nature. Let us take an example. Suppose a cobra comes and falls in your lap. What will happen? We'll run away. Why? There is a fear. He is a cobra. He will bite me. Okay. Now let us say a cobra has a baby cobra. Now a baby cobra looks towards mother cobra. Is he afraid? He's not afraid. Why? Same. I am cobra, my mother is cobra. Why to get afraid of it? Why? Similar, identical. When you become, there is no fear because there is no duality. If this is story with one species, man is not afraid of man, he's afraid of tiger. Tiger is not afraid of tiger, but man. That means when identicalness is there, then there is nothing abhi. The whole message of Upanishads by Vivekananda, he told that it is abhi, no fear. No fear is possible when everything is perceived as me, as they and me. There is no they, there is no me. It's only one. This oneness. Now you see it from Jnana Yoga angle or Bhakti Yoga angle, whichever way. But the scientific explanation of that is in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So the fundamental understanding is Triguna is the potency of the Prakriti. Prakriti through Triguna potency creates everything. While creating, it first goes through 4 transformations, which are Tattvantaras. But the last transformation that happens after Pancha Mahabhuta is nothing else but just the modification. No new things are created. From Tanmatra, when Pancha Mahabhutas are produced, a new Tattva comes into the existence. From Mahat, when Ahankara is produced, a new Tattva comes into the picture. But from Pancha Mahabhuta onwards, it is just the change into the shape and the size. Once the clay is produced, after that, it is only the transformation of clay into the pot, into this. Once the gold is produced, then the necklace, the bangle, the earring is nothing else but the modification of gold. No new tattva is formed. So that is one fundamental. Out of these 3 gunas, it is the rajas, which because of its inherent motion, makes it impossible to understand what we just now spoke. Suppose what we spoke theoretically now is understood at the intellectual level, then what will happen? Everything will be same. In fact, this is what happened with Vivekananda. He was eating food and he felt so bad that how can you eat Brahman? Because he was not able to see the food as food. It was looking as Brahman. Those are these rare saintly people who have that vision because they have reached the state of ekagrata parinam. But what the Rajoguna does is Rajoguna obliterates the understanding of this Prakriti Udbhava things. Interrelatedness of everything that is created being one is obliterated by Rajoguna. Thus, Rajas makes everything is separate and not connected is the message given by Rajoguna. And this Rajasic feeling that everything is separate and not related is ego. Ego. What is ego? Ego is the Rajasic feeling existing in the mind which makes us feel separate from each other. And Prakriti punishes everyone who does not understand the basic law that everything is one. This punishment given by the Prakriti for the one who is not understanding its basic laws and harboring too much of rajas into him is called samsar. Rajas does dual work. Rajas creates separatedness. To that extent, it is still not bad. All right, this is cup and this is me, this is tree and I am different, this is tiger, still not bad. But separatedness is the mother of desire. Why will you desire if everything is same? Do you desire about your own finger? No. What is the desire? It is mine. What to desire about it? I have a desire, I should have a beautiful finger. It's mine. I should own a finger. No, it's mine. I should own the eyes. No, they are mine. Already they're mine. So I'm one with them. When I'm one with something, there is no desire. If I see another lady's eyes which are beautiful, then this lady will say, I want to have eyes like that. Separatedness creates desire. So Rajas creates desire. Desire creates karma, and karma binds. So in other words, in Prakruti that we are, there are subjects and objects. Subject and object creation is the classical slap given by Rajoguna on our face. Until the time you feel you are subject and there are objects, in order to remove this Rajoguni feeling of separatedness, initially presume that you are subject and presume that they are object and sit for meditation. By doing dhyana, meditation, the gap between subject and object as a separatedness is lost. Slowly the object and subject start coming closer to each other. And when they merge into one, which is the ekagrata parinam or samadhi, at that point of time, you realize that it was not an object, it was not an subject, it was my presumption under the influence of Rajoguna. Any act which reduces these distance between the object and the subject, this separatedness, any act that reduces the separatedness distance is called sattvika karya. What do you mean by do sattva guna? Sattva guna means reduce the separatedness between the object and the subject. Now, initially, you reduce the separatedness between the world and yourself by not getting involved into the world. Because I will get involved into the world only when I'm very sure that the world is an object of enjoyment, it is a separate object. So first remove your separatedness from the world and come to your mind. Now you are ready to work on your mind. So first vairagya. Before that, you understand that separatedness is the cause of my problem. That is viveka. Once you understand, then leave this attachment. Leave. Attachment means separatedness. Leave this. This is vairagya. As vairagya progresses along with the viveka, that means with yama and niyama, you slowly develop an ability. Sufficient sattva guna comes in you, which will propel you to sit for meditation. So this removal of rajoguna in the world, which is resulting into separatedness, is called chitta shuddhi prakriya. Anybody who believes in separatedness, chitta ashuddha. What is chitta shuddhi? Removal of rajogunic separatedness feeling of I and others, subject and object in this world of Prakriti, trying to understand that all are Prakrutodbhava, all have come from the same mother. That is why Prakriti is called Bahu Prasava. There is something interesting about this Prakriti and its creation also. Prakriti has, a clay has created a pot. So suppose you are seeing at the pot, you know that, oh, pot is created from the clay. So your knowledge is limited that clay can produce pot. But you are mistaken. Clay produced pot this time. Next time, what it will create? Something different, which even you cannot imagine, because your knowledge is restricted to the pot. You don't have the ability to understand the potency of the clay to create a different, all shapes you cannot understand unless you understand clay. So unless you master Prakriti, you will never come to know what Prakriti can produce. So this universe that we see is but one shape that the Prakriti has taken. One universe that she has created. That is why Prakriti can create many universes. And unfortunately, sir, after 2000, 5000 years, science now says There is no universe, there are multiverses. But Hindu Shastra knew it so long back that it says Ananta Koti Brahmanda Nayaka Raja Dhiraja Yogi Raja. Ananta Koti Brahmanda, that means Ananta Koti, multi-billion universes. Don't be under impression that men are only here in this earth. There cannot be any other person having intellectual. Maybe there are people on Mars and all that. The possibility has already been taken and discussed by Patanjali. Any amount of different types of universes. Yours is a universe with 3 dimensions. You cannot think of 4th dimension, not possible. Why? That kind of universe you are living in. There could be a universe where there are 20 dimensions, you don't know. But how do you understand those 20? For that kind of intellect would be there in that universe. Multiple types of universes may be existing, and these universes may be interacting with each other, which you may not be aware. So humongous is the capacity of Prakriti to produce these universes. Person like Kabir Maharaj understands this very well. So he says, Maya, he is calling Maya, Prakriti. What is he saying? Maya Maha Thagini Hamajani. I know you are a bad witch. You can produce anything. Tiraguna Bhase, Liye Karadole. You are Triguni. Liye Karadole. Like a puppetry, you are taking these 3 gunas in your hand. Bole Madhuri Bani. Oh, you appear so sweet that everybody gets deluded. But Kabir Maharaj says, not me. I know you. Those who went beyond Prakriti. So first thing Prakriti, what it does is, when there is a creation happening, the first thing it does is, it uses 3 gunas as the potency and creates rupa, shapes. Now the question is, for the shape to exist, space has to exist. No shape can be there without space. How can you have that? So first space, Akash. But the problem is, Akash, if it has to start, the word start will come. When the start word comes, the end is automatically presumed. And when there is a start and there is end, that means time has started. That means space and time are simultaneous generations. You can't have space without time, time without space. This is called time-space combination, the great discovery of Einstein. Time-space combination, already told in Prakriti Shastra by Patanjali Maharaj. Temporal dimension means dimension having time as an ingredient is a must for Prakriti. Prakriti itself is beyond time. But what Prakriti produces is within time. So it is temporal. So only when space-time combination exists, the creation starts. And our job in Yoga Shastra is to understand the Prakriti and then Purusha. To understand Prakriti means we will have to go beyond space-time. So those who transcend the space and time only can understand Prakriti. And those who transcend this Prakriti, they understand the operation of Prakriti. And because they understand the operation of Prakriti, what they do is called miracle by us. What we say as a miracle is something which is happening beyond space and time, which cannot be understood by people who are bound in the space and time. So phenomena occurring at beyond space and time is miracle for the people who are bound in the space and time. Actually, there is no miracle. So the fundamentally is Prakriti and its evolute. Time is also evolute of Prakriti. So Prakriti, with the help of 3 gunas, starts the space-time complex or Dikkala, and then the shapes are produced. We are all shapes of them, which continuously keep on changing. What is the nature of these shapes? how do they change, and how they are related to my mind is the subject of our next session. That is where this vibhuti or siddhis we are going to understand properly. What is dharma, what is lakshana, what is avastha of this creation. If we understand that, and if this is the case, that the prakriti is producing panchamahabhutas, and in space-time complex all this is formed, that means when the space-time is not there, this is not existing. That means its existence is there for a very short time, till the time I appreciate it, it is there. I am able to see, but moment I see, what I saw has already changed into something else. Kshanika. If this is the case, that means there is no certainty about what I see. Then what is this world? This world is nothing else but phantasmagoria of my mind. It is the prakriti that is taking shapes and moving. It is a kaleidoscope moving in front of my eyes. But I call it as truth because I am deluded. Frankly speaking, it was not there. It is not there. It won't be there. It is a continuous flux of things. The flux itself also has no subsistence, because flux again is into a moment of flux. If this is the case, then what am I seeing? Ajatavada. There is no creation of the world, but it is the mind which is perceiving the world. When the mind is not there, who will perceive the world? On this much of backdrop, it would be easier for us to understand a little bit more about Sankhya Tattva Jnana and how everything in this world is functioning, how it is same as our functioning of mind. So by controlling our own mind, controlling these things is one and the same thing. And that is how the yogi has all the siddhis. But by the time he understands all this, he has lost the whole significant value of that. That is why none of the yogis who have obtained this vibhutis or siddhis, they never use it for their own purpose because they find it fee upon that. Vivekananda was given all the siddhis like at a drop of hat by Ramakrishna. And he said, you know, Vivek, Narendra, what did I give you? Narendra said, no, sir, what is it? He said, it is all siddhi. Now you are Swami of all the three worlds. The only question Vivekananda asked is it going to help me in moksha? He said, no, that will not help you in moksha. Then he said, keep it with you. That is the most eloquent dialogue between the worthy saintly guru and the worthy shishya. That is because the vairagya has reached to a level. In fact, it is like this. A person, when he becomes sannyasi, he gets the kingdom. Now, because he has become sannyasi, he has no use of kingdom. So even though he has the kingdom, he doesn't use it. So Purna Vairagya leads to Siddhi. That is why Siddhis are never misused except by the pilgrims who are on the way. They are called Bhrashta Yogis. We will see more in detail about these applications of Prakriti, mind, and these three parinamas, Nirodha Parinama, Samadhi Parinama, Ekagrata Parinam, and its counterpart in the nature, Dharma, Lakshana, Avastha, in the next session. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnam Nidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Open for questions.
Amazing session, Sanjay ji. Really highlights sometimes you explain this, but the ignorance of our understanding says for me, while studying Vedanta, I thought that, sattva is when there's complete peace and there's complete, tranquility, and then there is no ability to observe that there is a, gap or a balance between being stationary and movement. I thought it was completely different. That was my understanding till now. But is it a balance, or see, if you're able to observe that there is there is stationary and there is movement, is it like in balance and that is what is sattva, or is it the ability to observe that there could be a gap in that? I don't know if I'm clear, but
Yes. The first thing is to create an ability to observe. That means increasing the sattva guna is the first step in any sadhana. The reason being, when you observe the mind, when you create an ability to observe the mind, then this ability to observe itself gets parinita, gets transformed into a stage where the observation itself becomes absent. So sattva guna we try to collect in the beginning for the very purpose that afterwards sattva guna is also to be thrown. Now, how do you throw it? The awareness that I am throwing the sattva guna itself means you are into the awareness zone, into the egoistic awareness. Once you go, it is like slipping into coma, getting into sleep mode. There is a stage when you are awake, and then you are not awake. That is asleep. Similarly, when tamo and rajoguna are kept at bay, sattva guna is an ascendancy, then that is the spring dive from where you jump into infinity. The spring dive remains there, the sattva guna remains there. So what happened is you ascended first on the pole where the spring dive was kept. So from tamo to rajo, you came up by staircase. Now on the spring dive of sattva guna, you took the last plunge and left that pole, the spring dive, everything behind, went into the water, into the infinity. So this is a progression. Because the three gunas, each of them have certain characteristics, you first observe their characteristic, see what characteristics you have in you, and then start taking steps so that you move from tamo to rajo. No, but I want to jump from tamo guna to sattva guna. Not possible. Why? From darkness you will come towards the faint light and then in the light. From tamo guna you come into rajo guna. That is why Vivekananda, when he was asked about India, he said, forget about everything. We don't need saintly people here. We want people who work. Rajoguna first. See, that great saint, he had observed the India so well that he said, Tamoguna is filled in India. It's all into darkness of Tamoguna. First, the Tamoguni should first try for Rajoguna. Is it not that we say in the house that Din bhar baitha rehta hai, he doesn't do anything, let him do something? That's exactly what you're doing. Tamoguna, you're trying to convert into Rajoguna. After Rajoguna, is it not that we did all Rajogunic, Rajasic activities throughout our life? What is happening when you're reaching to 60? And there is no point, ultimately it's all why this talk is coming now? Rajoguna is receding. Thinking ability, sattva guna is, so that is why you say, doesn't matter what car you are having, what clothes you are wearing, at the end your thoughts are more. All this has happened at the age of 60. Rajoguna is on the waning side. And that is not because sattva guna has been really harbored a lot. It is simply because indriyanam jarayanti teja, indriyas are becoming weak. A little bit of youth given. If you are 60 and some youth is given to you by God, again we will go back to Rajoguna. So the tama to raja, raja to sattva. So sattva, tranquility, as you said. Tranquility is nothing else but ability to observe. What is tranquility? When children are fighting with each other, as a father, what do? You are not troubled by them. You observe them. And sometimes you feel good also. Oh, he's fighting with him. See how he said, You're enjoying it. Why? You're observing. Observing is possible when you're not the child, you're the father now. You separated yourself from them. So from Rajoguna and Tamoguna, when you separate yourself and observe them, that is tranquility, that is Sattva-guna. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. Thank you for giving the deeper insight into this Triguna and potency, and also you have mentioned about this Mulyamaya, the potency. Potency is the right word for the Mulyamaya, or there's in Sanskrit there will be a different meaning. What my question is that now you have mentioned that all these Panchamahabhutas created will be merging with the nature again, once again. But what happens to the prana?
Prana is what? Prana itself, if you look at this Sankhya evaluate, prana is also coming from the same source. It is with the Rajoguna, because pranas move. So ahankar, Rajoguna yukta ahankar becomes prana. Sattva-guna yukta ahankar becomes mana or buddhi. Tamoguna yukta ahankar becomes tanmatra and panchamahabhuta. So they're all coming from there. And when panchamahabhutas goes back into tanmatra into back into ahankara, ahankara back into buddhi, buddhi back into vyakta, and then from pradhan it goes into avyakta. That means goes back to the mula maya, mula prakriti. Mula prakriti is the prakriti where all its potencies are stored in the balanced form. She is not expressing it herself. That is mula maya. And potency, because how do you call a clay? Do you see a pot in the clay? We don't see a pot in the clay, but is it not that the clay can make a pot? Yes, that means what is there in clay, potness is there in the clay, not pot, potness. What is there in the gold? Necklace, then bangleness, then necklaceness, then earringness. All that potencies are there in the gold. Similarly, Prakriti has the potency. Water, when it normally flows, does it not have a kinetic energy into it? Only when you harness it, it becomes electricity. That means electricity is already existing. So who is the dharmi? Water is the dharmi. What is the dharma? Electricity is the dharma. So similarly, all of us in this Prakriti are dharma. Who is the dharmi? Prakriti. So all of us are coming from the same mother. Kalima is nothing else but personification of Prakriti. So if she is the one who has given birth to all of us, she knows the ways best. That is why Ramakrishna Parama used to say, Ma, whatever you say will happen. What itself means is, Prakriti, you are the one who has created it. So now I leave it to you. Once you leave it to her, then you know how she operates, you are happy. But when you say, no, Prakriti is not important, I am important, because now my egoistic interpretation has come, I suffer, it is called samsara. When I don't interpret, it is a prapancha. Prapancha is not problem. Samsara is a problem. Samsarati, it is a problem. Prapancha, yes, it is made up of Pancha Mahabhuta. Oh, there is a beautiful lady coming. A saintly person looks at it as, oh, Pancha Mahabhuta is coming. Oh, he is crying, Pancha Mahabhuta is crying. Oh, he is hungry, Pancha Mahabhuta is hungry. These are all nothing else but Dharma Lakshana Avastha. Dharma Lakshana Avastha. Everything is in Dharma Lakshana Avastha state. What is that Dharma? What is that Lakshana? What is that Avastha? Is the subject of next session. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you very much.
Hari Om, Dr. Sanjay ji.
Ji.
Very nice explanation. About the Bhagwan already mentioned in the 7th chapter about like Ashtadha Prakriti, and
Yes.
like there are like 5 Panchamahabhutas, and
Yes.
these three, either 3 gunas we says, or maybe Mana, Buddhi or Ahankara.
Yes.
So like Mana is like again like part of Vayu Tattva.
Yes.
It is said like that, and Teja is like part of like Buddhi is from Teja Tattva. So it
Yes.
is like within that it is just like mix up, right? I mean,
Yes.
there is nothing like separate. It is all the part of Prakriti, and Purusha is the different, and everything is came from the Purusha. Yeah, and the explanation you have given very nicely about like clay. So the clay itself is the part from the Purusha, and from there it is everything is developed.
Clay is not part of Purusha. Clay works or shows its potency because of Purusha. Because clay is a part of Purusha would mean Purusha would have a Kartrutvata. Purusha doesn't have a Kartrutvata. Sun doesn't have any intention in reflecting the light. It is the mirror which is reflecting the light. Sun didn't say to the mirror that please reflect my light. That is the relationship. That is Vivartata Vada of Shankaracharya. See, Bimba, Pratibimba, Vivartata, and all this, when we come to this is little technical part, but Prakriti itself is a Jada. So Prakriti's potencies, even though it has potency, say clay has potency, but does clay on its own come and says, take this pot? No. The clay has to be converted. Somebody has to have a nimitta karana. The kumbhad is the potter, is the nimitta karana, upadana karana. But actual karan is what? The clay's possibility got manifested, though it has potency to manifest. The whole existence of the clay is because of Purusha, though Purusha has not converted into the clay. Purusha and Prakriti are separate. That is why in Sankhya philosophy, Prakriti, Purusha never come together. It is only when you know at Anubhuti level that though this is Prakriti, this is Purusha, Kaivalya is done. So this is a little technical part. And that is why Bhagavan in Sankhya Yoga, when he starts in Bhagavad Gita, the first thing he says that Prakriti keeps coming, keeps creating everything. And that is why we keep coming and going. Na tu eva aham jatu nasam na tvam nema janadhipaha na cha eva na bhavisham sarve vayam mataha param. Arjuna, you have also come in the past. I have also come in the past. Not that we will not be coming again. And now that we have come. This entire shloka is percolating or circulating around Dharma Lakshana Avastha. So that is why clay as a Prakriti is a good example. But clay doesn't exist because of Purusha. Prakriti is the Prakriti's operational aspect. Prakriti's every act that she does requires Purusha's presence. But Purusha doesn't ask. Of course, this is Sankhyan philosophy. In case of Shaiva Siddhanta, it is totally different. They say, no, there is no difference between clay and that. It is the Purusha only which has become Prakriti. That is called Shakti Siddhanta. These are technical differences. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
So just on this point, you've explained it. A little doubt is there in terms of, so Prakriti you mentioned as, potentiality, right? So is this, still avyakta as in, or is it, taken some form? That just that slight, because
Yes.
you said Purusha enables Prakriti, right? So just a little light on that will help.
When Prakriti decides not to manifest, it is avyakta. Doesn't, like clay has decided not to make any pot. Does that mean the clay is not there? Clay is there. Where is the pot? No. Right now, clay has not decided to create a pot. So that is why a Prakriti is avyakta when it has not expressed itself. And the time when it decides to express, it becomes vyakta. So avyakta and vyakta. So today what we see is a vyakta, manifested, expressed Prakriti. There is a time when it doesn't, the universe is not made. That is what we call as pralaya and kalpa. The cosmogony, Hindu cosmogony says pralaya and kalpa. Pralaya means dissolve everything and stay in dormant condition. That is avyakta. Again expressed. And how many times? Millions of times this is happening. Universes after universes are coming. Second thing is, one balloon may burst. Other balloons are still there. Other universe is still there. Or maybe all balloons are burst. And then again it will start floating new balloons. That is why Prakriti is a huge and humongous concept. Hari Om.